Well, certainly a majority of your planning commission and 4-1 majority on the city council did shape and adopt that medical marijuana dispensary ordinance. What do you think the long-term effects, not just economically but socially, are going to be in the city?
Well, we got the medical marijuana, or the cannabis ordinance, given to us by City Council as a planning commission with a role to turn it into an ordinance that would work on the ground, which was a zoning ordinance. So we got it as a policy decision. And so, whether I felt one way or another about it policy-wise, in the planning commission role, our job was to fabricate a good ordinance, which we did, frankly. The ordinance we produced, in my mind, is a good one. As good as you're going to get under the circumstances, and it's already passed City Council, and once it's on the ground, I think it'll work fairly effectively. Now, the whole notion, though, of how do you do this from a social point of view? Medical cannabis ordinance, medical cannabis, or AS 215, like anything, undoubtedly gets abused. And I'm probably not a prescription drug in the world doesn't get abused. And this is probably no different than the rest of them.
It's my understanding both of your opponents, at least one thing they do agree on, is they're willing to voluntarily adopt the $500 campaign contribution limit that's only coming into force starting in 2011 moving forward. Is that something you're interested in undertaking?
Well, I have really thought long and hard about that. I didn't like the original ordinance, and I actually stated that in public. And the reason I didn't like it was that I didn't like the idea that it didn't have any limit on an individual contributing to their own campaign, which I thought gave an unfair advantage to people with a lot of money. Now, bless your soul, I am not one of those people with a lot of money. So, but I was thinking of other people who have a lot of money. I think of Meg Whitman and her, $100 million plus now of personal money she's dropped into a campaign. And I'm thinking, if somebody in this town had a huge amount of money and could self-fund their campaign, they would have an enormous advantage under this new ordinance. But the ordinance passed. It is the law. If my opponents basically publicly adopt this, and I haven't heard that they had, then I would seriously consider adopting the same stand. I don't believe big money campaigns are healthy for the community. So I basically would be perfectly happy to adopt it, but I wouldn't want to adopt it, frankly, and not know with one great deal of certainty my opponent did the same thing, or I would be at a serious competitive disadvantage.
Also on the subject of electoral reform is true ward voting. Eureka seems to have this system I can't find a parallel for other cities in California. You either have at-large elections where 2 or 3 seats at a time are up, like Arcata or Fortuna, or you have wards that are true wards that are districts, and each district has its own representative. Do you think Eureka has to make a choice, one or the other?
I've supported True Ward for a couple reasons. One is it provided a built-in campaign finance reform of its own. Running in your own ward would require probably as much as a sixth or maybe even a tenth of the amount of money it takes to run citywide. Because you'd be able to, frankly, make repeated visits to every single home that you were trying to attract to. It's almost practically impossible to canvass the entire city on foot in the less than 3 months that you have available to do that. I already tried to do it once, and I was shocked at how big the city got when you tried to walk all of it. So I like the true ward notion. We're going to have to do something very serious in a variety of fashions to create jobs. Besides what I mentioned, changing some of the bureaucratic rules, we need to have an infusion of money into such things as you mentioned, redevelopment, where we actually attract businesses here. There are some things that we can do that have been talked about by others, like short sea shipping is a notion, barging basically in and out of the bay. I think we really ought to get on it and try to help that happen, not just wait for it to happen. We've got a dock here that's ready to be used to make that happen. That would create a lot of well-paying jobs down there on longshoreman type jobs to do that. So that's a perfect example, an extremely good entrepreneurial opportunity. So, over the next 4 years, I think it's a matter of changing the culture, changing the message that you give. I'd like to see an industrial park here. People have talked about it. It's been extremely difficult in my mind, and I know the zoning of Eureka, to find a good place to put something like that. It hasn't really been something as easy to do here as it was, say, to do in Arcata. If we could find a way to do that, it'd be fine. We've had people come here with grand ideas to build some great facilities. Barbara Groom come with a plan to build a world-class brewery facility down here. And I would extremely say this is the kind of things we need to get behind. People that are willing to take the chances, put their own money on the table. We just need to encourage them so they can make that happen. Government can be an ally and not an opposition to these sort of things.
All right, Mr. Kuhnel, thanks for making this interview happen.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking with you.